Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Seth, one of the co-hosts of Engaged Podcast, to bring you today another great episode of Engaged Podcast. But before I can get into who our guest is today, if you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, go ahead and do so right now. If you subscribe, you won't have to look for us every single Thursday. It's going to be directly downloaded onto your phone waiting for you to listen. If you have not had a chance yet to check out our YouTube page, the link for that's down in the show notes. You can find so much cool content on our YouTube page. It's not even funny. We have book review videos. We have leadership videos. We have our live stream services every single Sunday at 11 a.m. We have videos. We're on the tail end of finishing up our U2 music review videos. We're going to continue those videos, just not with the band U2. There's just so much for you to dive into, and not to mention the fact that there you can also find the video version of today's podcast. So you can see the guest, interact with the guest, just like we are seeing and interacting with the guest. It's a really cool, just different level of experience that you can have with Engaged Podcast. So check out our YouTube page, subscribe to that, and that way you can get notified every time we come out with new content on our YouTube page. So with that being said, our guest today is an amazing individual. I have known this man for quite some time. I know him from my days at Dunkin Donuts. He, to put it in simple, plain terms, he's the guy that corporate sends to inspect stores. Every now and then, corporate needs to know how a store is operating. So they send this guy to come down and check out your store. And the thing that made this man stand out above his peers was that usually if people came down to inspect your store as the store manager, like I was, it's not necessarily a fun thing. It's not something that you enjoy. But one of the things that this man did is that every time he'd come down, he was so gracious with just giving us his just pieces of wisdom. And he taught me a lot about what it means to be a manager, what it means to be a leader, what it means to be a coach. And, in fact, the word coach is exactly how I would describe him. So his name was Bob Wiesler. He still works for Dunkin', and he's just an amazing man. And he's also a very devout Christian. And we talk a lot about management, leadership, how to run a successful business. We talk about living out your faith. There's so many things we talk about here in such a short period of time. It's overwhelming. But we definitely want to have him back on the show. I thanked him so much for coming on our show. So give it up for our friend Bob Wiesler.
This is Engaged Podcast. We are recording today from Pastor Anthony's house. How are you, Seth?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Outside is a nice, hot, humid Pennsylvania day. I hope you're wherever you're sitting is a beautiful day as well. Today we have the great privilege of sitting with Mr. Bob Wiesler. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And right behind you, I see Wichita runs on Dunkin'. So why don't we jump right into it and tell us what is it exactly that you do?
So I'm a regional operations manager for Inspire Brands, assigned to Dunkin' and Baskin. It's a fancy way of saying a franchise business consultant. Main responsibility is helping the franchisees grow their business and then make sure they're running to the guidelines and standards of Dunkin' and Baskin Robbins.
Interesting. And how long have you done that?
7 years, going on number 8, and started back in Pittsburgh. The gentleman sitting next to you is a big part of my initiation into the brand, into the Dunkin' brand. And it's coffee, donuts, and ice cream. So, really seriously, how hard can your job be, right?
Right.
Nobody told me that people like their coffee 70,000 ways different. So everybody has their own recipe and concoction, and then they get a little bit irritated when they can tell the difference between like 4 pumps of caramel and 5 pumps of caramel, like that one pump makes their day kind of thing. But it is a fun gig, that's for sure.
Yeah, the way you described that does sound fun. All things that people generally like and brings joy to people. You show up with donuts, it's like, that's awesome. You show up with coffee, everyone likes that. You show up with ice cream, same thing.
Yeah. Well, in the Dunkin' world, a lot of people don't realize I could write a book about the different experiences, because it's just, I find Dunkin' is just a different experience in fast food, not just with fast food. Like, I've talked with people who've worked at Wendy's or McDonald's, and there's a lot of stories that they share that we never experienced at Dunkin', but there's a lot of stories at Dunkin' that other fast food people I've talked to are like, oh yeah, we never had to deal with that. Baskin-Robbins was probably one of the worst ones because of with the cappuccino blast. That's notorious. Anyone who's ever worked at a Baskin-Robbins knows. But for the most part, though, Dunkin' was a great place to learn leadership skills, management skills, how to work with people, how to work with the public, and to kind of get into the reason why I wanted you to come on our show is because my pastor here is a huge proponent on leadership and management and all that. And I was thinking, there was one word I would use to describe you would be a coach. And to give some people some insight on to, how I know you personally was when me and my friend Shelby, when we were managing one of our stores in the castle together, you would come in and you do your RORs or RVs, whatever they called them at the time. And before you came along, those RVs or RORs were always like the most stressful day because you were being inspected by corporate essentially. And it was always just walk in, point out what's wrong. You got a 98% or whatever, and then that's it. But one of the things that you did so well was you came in and you coached the staff, you coached the management on not just what we did wrong, but how we could improve. And you always would tell us why those things are so important. It's not just busy work. You always told us there was a purpose. And that's something that I think a lot of people in the corporate world, they need to have. And so you were a perfect example of that. So with that being said, who were some of the biggest influences in your life that has led you to be the person that you are today?
I'll start with my dad. He was he was really a servant leader, really he was the life of the party when it was in that setting. But on a personal level, he was just a quiet servant leader. Had a tremendous sense of humor. So nothing was ever so serious. And then he was also very humble. And that's kind of interesting because he played for the New York Yankees in the 40s and 50s when, his rookie year, his rookie year with the Yankees at the major league level was Mickey Mantle. So, he played with the elites of the elites. And when he would tell stories, which he was great at storytelling, he would tell stories about his experiences and about other people. So it was never about him. He was in the story as like a bit player. It was kind of interesting the way he told stories. But it was always about other people and experiences and the learnings from those experiences, usually combined with a lot of humor, because you can only imagine the trouble that people would get in the late 40s and through the 50s being a Major League Baseball player. So he was certainly one of the early ones. Then the two in business that really resonated with me and that I'm still friends with, and actually one got me into Dunkin'. The first one was Scott Sanborn. Met him through Ponderosa Steakhouse years ago. Just, again, a great mentor. Didn't tell you the answers, just helped you find and get to the answers. So, a lot of patience when it comes to that. And then Tom Stratton is the other one who I met through Donato's Pizza, and then he came over and worked with Dunkin and got me into Dunkin. And again, just a really great mentor that made you understand the other person, the I call him end user. I'm a big believer in what does the end user want, and are we doing things to help the end user? Do we really know what they want? And Tom was really good about that. Tom, his brother, the Strattons, had a fabled past with McDonald's, including Tom. So they understood the franchisee side of the business and how important it was, and how to be a servant leader and take care of the franchisees because they take care of us. So those were probably the top three in that order. And then the last one is Christ, which is funny because I was raised Catholic and really never had a great relationship with him, knew him, believed in him, but never really trusted him. So it was through a couple failed steps in life that I finally decided, hey, I know about him, and I've spent a lot of time understanding him, but maybe I should trust him, and maybe I should have a really close relationship with him. And so that's really kind of the mentor that I have now, the leader that I count on now is what are those learnings? What are those lessons? What are there aren't too many rules. He didn't have too many rules, but the ones he did have, they're pretty darn important. So when it comes to mentors, those are, on the Dunkin side, Troy Berardi, I'm sure you know him. Mm-hmm. Your mother-in-law and father-in-law, really, and you can tell I get choked up about this, really helped me understand the business. So, I've been blessed with a lot of really good mentors, and then, my current boss, Curtis Roberts, who's a director for the brand, is just super. I mean, just really, he's that why guy. Like you said, you use the word why. And to me, that's what coaching is about, is helping people understand the whys in the hows, and then training is about the when and where's and what's. So if you can help people understand the why and how, to me, that's coaching. So,
hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to circle back on some of those things you mentioned.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, you said your dad played for the Yankees. What time was he there? Like, how many years? What was the era?
1948, he was drafted out of Beaumont High School in St. Louis. To put it in perspective, currently most major league teams have 6 or 8 minor league affiliates, and there's 30 of them. But back then there was only like 12 teams in the league, and the Yankees had 22 minor league affiliates. So you had to go through 22 levels to get to the major leagues. So he was drafted in 1948, signed right out of high school, and then made it officially to the majors in 51. And then from 51 to 55, played for the Yankees. And then he got traded to the Washington Nationals for a young ball player named Whitey Herzog. So that's one of my dad's claim to fame is Whitey Herzog and him were traded to different teams. So yeah.
In that era, did they win any championships?
He went to the 1955 World Series and they lost to the Dodgers or the Giants. I forget which one. So yeah, he missed out by 1 year. If he'd stayed another year, the 56 team won the World Series. So he had a nice World Series. Both teams, if you went to the World Series, got World Series rings. My brother now owns the World Series ring that my dad has. So there was a lot of good memorabilia.
That's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about helping the end user. Is that right? What does that mean?
So you can call them the customer, the end user, and just really knowing what they want. Are you really taking care of them? And I always say this, and Seth, you'll understand this. A lot of people don't do that. It's almost like we have this mentality of somebody pulls up to the speaker box and they go, all right, I have $20. And the person taking the order says, okay, pull up to the window. We'll have your order ready. And they get to the window and they have no idea what they just know the guest has $20. They have no idea what they want, and they make stuff hoping they fulfill that order right, because they haven't taken the time to ask them what they really want. What are you really looking for, so we can take care of you. And it, it really costs a lot of problems if you don't take the time to do that. And process management, if you've ever seen a process management flow chart, you'll notice that there's a lot of what I call no loops. If this says no, then you have to double back and do the back. You have to go back 3 steps and start the process over. Well, that's because you don't find out what the customer really wants, and those negative loops are very, very expensive.
So what would be an example? Give us a practical example of what you're talking about.
So a practical example would be, I'll put it in perspective of, we want to redesign the RV process, the restaurant visit process, okay? And we want to make sure that we do this, that we want to do these 10 things. And so we go in and we design the process, and we then put it through all the testing, and then we roll it out to the franchisee, and we work with the franchisee, and the franchisee gets nothing but frustrated because in their perspective, that doesn't achieve the expectations to the guests, because we designed it, not the franchisee who's going to have to use it, and it evaluates the guests. So we didn't talk to the guests, and we didn't talk to the franchisee. So we developed a system that the end users had no input in until we were ready to roll it. And then, so if we go back and change it at that point, we wasted all that time in the development phase of doing this, and they have to go back and redesign everything. And so that's the end user. So the end user is, I'll give you an example, Seth, and I think we talked about this. In the restaurant, the sandwich station person, the end user is not the customer. It's the pickup window person. Am I taking care of the pickup, the drive-through window person? Or am I taking care of the expediter at the pickup area for online mobile ordering or dine-ins? You're not taking care of the customer because you have very little connection with them. Your goal is to make the sandwiches, complete the order properly, so that when you give it to the cashier to give to the guest, you have taken care of the drive-through window person. If you ask the sandwich station person, who is the guest, who is the end user, they'll tell you the person in the car. And they have no connection with that person.
Right, and because of they're thinking that the person in the car is the end user.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. It's like they're not. It's that like they completely miss over the person who's going to hand that order out to the customer. And so if the person who's handing out the order isn't feeling valued, if they don't feel like, if they feel invisible and their needs are not being met, then ultimately you're never going to achieve the, satisfying the customer, because the person who's actually handing it out is ticked off because you're putting it in the wrong place.
Exactly.
I think about just one of the things I learned from you, just from a managerial, in applying what you're talking about, is with the employees, is knowing why does this person work for this brand? Why does let's just say Carol, okay? Why is Carol working at Dunkin Donuts? Is it just to pay bills?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then my job as a manager is to help her meet that need. And then if, let's say, Ben's doing it because he wants to learn managerial skills. He wants to learn. My job now as manager is to coach him and help him to achieve that. If I'm giving those individuals what they are wanting and what they need, then they're going to take care of the customer, and it's going to take care of itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of people don't think that way. And a lot of, the common mistake is we just need to satisfy the guest. Well, but you're overthinking, you're overstepping your employees, who at the end of the day feel like I don't matter because I'm not the customer. And ultimately they'll quit and they'll become the customer because they want to be valued.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we had an example where we got a new vice president, and we had a monthly recap that we had to do to, keep her in the loop. She wanted to know. I mean, she's got 500 restaurants over 14 states. And so we, on the fourth rendition of this, the words came that we were getting closer to what she wanted. And I finally interrupted and I'm mad at myself because I didn't do it 2 renditions ago. And I said, has anybody sat with Maria and said, okay, what exactly are you looking for in these recaps so that we can give you what you want? We'll put it in our, I always look at format, content, and style. So what's the format you want it in? And then what's, that's kind of like your foundation of your house. And then what's the content? What do you need it filled with? And then we'll deal with the style, the font size, the font itself, the color and stuff. But it's like, don't you think it'd be wise for us to someone, I don't care if you want it to be me, it'll be me, to ask for an hour of her time and say, what exactly do you need? So that we provide these, because there's 9 of them coming to you, in the format and give you the content that you want so that you have the recaps, because you're funneling this up to the chief operating officer. So wouldn't that be really important? We could have spent 2 hours with her 4 renditions ago and gotten this right, other than we keep trying to guess what she wants, and she keeps giving us feedback that, yeah, take this out, I need you to add this in, and it wasted so much time. And it became very frustrating. The closer you get, the more frustrated you become, because it's like, it's not perfect yet, or it's not where someone just sit down and answer the question, what do you want? So we can give it to you. It's not you're our boss. This is a recap for you. You're the end user. What do you want so we can give it to you? And you think about it, it does kind of play a part of, whether it's your flock or your relationship with God or with Christ, is, what's the end user want? What do they need? Right? Yeah. It takes some time to learn that, so you don't waste. Trial and error is really, and I'm a kinetic learner. So, I build the swing set and have 14 bolts and nuts left over and say, you go try it, see if it's safe. But that's not a real good way to go through life or work in the business world. So yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
I guess it's just about valuing people, not overlooking people. I read somewhere on Facebook recently, with all of the stimulus checks are given out, and businesses can't find anyone to work. And basically flipped it and said, well, considering the people that are working and are now doing 2 jobs or 3 jobs at the same place that they were hired for before, did you think about giving them a bonus? Did you think about, appreciating them for what they're doing for you? And that really hit me. It just made me think that, these people are stepping in and doing something that they never, ever were originally hired for. It's so much more stressful. And it just posed a good question for those that are running any organization. How much are you appreciating and valuing those that are working for you? I mean, when times are good, it's great, but times haven't been great this last year, and a lot of people are spread so thin. It might be nice for some organizations to go out and appreciate those people, do something a little extra for them.
That's exactly right. It's unfortunately one of the casualties of one of the first casualties of war. Sometimes is when that stress sets in and you're battling. You forget to recognize people, not even reward them, because rewards are nice too. They're important, but just simple thank yous and I appreciate you, and then the specific reason why, just so it doesn't become like a greeting, right? It means something. So when you drive home from work, you're thinking about, well, yeah, Seth said he appreciated me for making sure all the orders were done in the right order at the sandwich station. So you're also building on those behaviors, as we walk through life, whether it be with children, young adults, even adults. It's not the words, it's the specific words that tend to, sink in and plant seeds of why you want really good behaviors to be exemplified and magnified, or why you want to stop bad behaviors. But we tend, because we get rushed and we get busy, those are the things we tend to forget or put off to the side first, is something as simple as just taking a minute, breathing, and saying, I appreciate you, or I love what you did for me, or those kind words mean something. And I don't know if you've ever read The 5 Love Languages. It's kind of a cool book. One of the love languages for people is words of affirmation. And it really resonates with people that have that as a primary love language, is making them feel appreciated for specifically what they did, and then hoping they repeat those behaviors. So it's really important.
Tell us a little bit about, you refer to yourself as a coach or a mentor. How is that different than a boss? Why are those terms important for you?
Well, you can be a good boss and be a coach and a mentor, but you can also be a really bad boss too. So, it's almost like people have asked me the difference between a manager and a leader, and managers manage systems, where leaders lead people through systems, through the use of systems. A boss will tell you, again, what to do, when to do it. They will usually focus on, again, like Seth said earlier, telling you what you did wrong. Where a coach and a mentor will explain the whys and hows, and then hopefully in that process, when you walk away, you can trust that behavior to be done. So you're not playing, I call it a big game of whack-a-mole leadership. You're always there trying to put out a fire or whack a mole down, and because you never get to the root causes and you never get to the systems. So you can be a good boss. I think it has bad connotations at times because of all the examples of bad bosses. But it really is all about, can you get people to achieve common goals that benefit everybody at some level? Because if you can't, like Seth said, whether it's the person that wants to get developed and promoted, or the person that's just there to fill 20 hours a week because dad makes me pay for my car insurance, whatever that's in it for them, the WIFM radio station, whatever it's in it for them, if you can tie into that and really flex your style to that, then when you walk away, that's when they perform. Not when a boss tends to get performance when they're there and over them. A leader, a mentor, a coach, hopefully will get that performance when they walk away, because of a desire to want to versus a need to have to kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that was
you guys do a great job on Sunday, but you can't be there Monday through Saturday to see if they're doing it right.
So coming off of that, leadership and management and knowing what people want and doing all the things we've talked about, this is something that I believe doesn't come naturally to the average person. It's something that's learned over time with, trial and error. Go to a job, you make a mistake, and then you realize, okay, that this is where I went wrong. Just like you were talking about this board meeting where you realized that you just wasted so much time and energy and resources because no one just simply just asked the question, what do you want? Tell us of a time just through your process, whether it be, professional, personal, of a time that you failed, and how you overcame that failure and how you are a better person today because of that failure.
So when you gave me this question, it's like, man, I don't know how long this podcast wants to last. I could tell you about a lot of failures, but the two that I think, the one, I did it twice because I wasn't smart enough the first time to really learn the lesson. But, I've been divorced twice and 2 failed marriages. And the lessons learned from that are a couple. Number one, I wasn't serious about being a leader in the marriage. The first one, I was very young and very selfish. The blessing out of that is I have a 38-year-old son that I love to death. The second one, we were both very driven, very energetic, very corporate. And we kind of just coexisted, like cohabitated, right? Co-managed. I always say that, especially in the end and it was 20 years. At the end, I almost felt like I was playing prevent defense. I was playing not to lose. So it really came from really looking at, you have to lead. I would rather lead down a path than to try to manage down a path and not have a direction. So that was one of the biggest things. And really what came from that is, do you understand yourself well enough to develop a culture of yourself? Businesses talk about culture all the time. What culture do we want to set? What's our culture? What's our culture statement? What's our behaviors? But do you really think about that as an adult, as a married couple, as a family? I didn't have one. And for me, that's the difference today, is I have a culture. It's my culture, and it's based on my relationship with God. So, so I want to be, I want to grow. One of my cultures is growth. Grow my spirituality, grow my relationships, and see people grow, help them grow. So that's part of my culture. I want prosperity in life, not profitability, not money, prosperity. I want to be able to reap the rewards of things around me. And so developing your own family or individual culture, to me, was really, really a valuable lesson. And I can only say that my advice would be, base it on a belief system that is not your own. For me, it's easy. It's Christianity. And the reason I say that is because you can look in the mirror and lie to yourself all day long, or justify your wins and your losses based on your belief systems. But you can't do it with God. He knows when it's fake news. So that was the biggest lesson from that, is just developing. I talk with franchisees all the time when we talk about growing their business, or they're struggling with people, right? And it's hard, more so than ever now. And that's the first thing I talk about. It's not the tools and systems. It's like, tell me about your culture. What culture do you want? And I start with a real simple exercise. It's like, what are the 4 or 5 things that define your culture? That if you put it on a wall, it's artwork. If it jumps off the wall and you can see behaviors being driven by that, then it is a culture. So it's interesting. And then give that piece of paper to 4 or 5 people in their business and say the same thing. Can you define the Daylart culture? What are the 4 or 5 things that really drive Daylart organization, and see how close they match up? It's kind of interesting exercise. But for me, that's the thing I did coming out of the second. I went through 3 years coming out of the second marriage of really spending time on me, working with 2 counselors, working with 2 mentors, working with a priest, working with a pastor. Because I said, if I'm going to have really good relationships in the future, I need to know what I need to do, not what they need to do. I can't change that. It's what do I need to do, and who do I need to be? So I'm the end user, right? So it's like, if it was you and me, I'd sit there and say, here's my culture. I'd love to have you be a part of it. But if you don't want to be a part of it, I get it. I totally get it. But I'd rather know that 2 weeks in than 2 years in, kind of thing. So for me, developing your culture and then sticking true to it. And again, I can only give you advice that for me, it's beyond myself. It's bigger than me. Whether it's your family, whether it's like I said, for me it was Christ related. So what do I want to be known for? What can people expect of me and count on me for based on that?
I think the irony is in the faith element, the end user actually isn't ourselves; it's actually Jesus.
That's exactly right.
Paul, and I just preached on this Sunday. He said, "Follow me as I follow Christ," and in that way, like you said, these values come outside of ourselves, and our goal becomes to fix our eyes on Jesus. That's what Hebrews says. And I think that's what a lot of people in the church get wrong. We think we're the end users, so it becomes all about us. But it's really the end user is God, is pleasing God. So when they understand that, it flips the script to say it's not about me, it's about we. It's about how I can serve others and bring a smile to my Savior's face rather than him bring a smile to my face. I think the culture of Christianity in America has gotten that very twisted, unfortunately. But I like what you're saying.
Well, I can give you a real quick example of that. I spent 2 weeks ago 3 days with somebody who is with Dunkin, and we toured 3 different markets to look for sites for franchisees. And this individual was amazing. He is amazing, and he's very, very spiritual, and he's gay, and so we had at times 3 hours of windshield time together, driving from Wichita to Springfield, Missouri, up to Kansas City and stuff. And it was really neat. We ran the gambit on conversations, and one of the conversations we had about was how do you square that? How do you square being gay and being very Christian? He's a youth pastor and loves God, and really what resonated was it's all about judgment. And the fact is, we shouldn't be judging. It's not ours to judge. And it was really cool to just, there wasn't trying to win an argument. There wasn't trying to convince me of anything. It was just learning from him what he has learned in life about his spirituality and about his life choice, and vice versa. And so, the one thing that really I see a lot of, and I deal with it with my family, is the last 4 or 5 years, we've certainly been able to get in heated debates and discussions because of the polarization of America. And what happens with that is that somebody wants to always be right, which means somebody has to be wrong if you believe that. Well, you can have 2 things be right at the same time. But if you really don't get into a judgment position, it's amazing how much you can learn from people. And it's not my thing to judge. That's, hey, somebody above my pay grade, many levels up, gets paid to judge on Judgment Day. So I try not to judge, which is hard, Seth, because when you're evaluating performances and RORs and RVs, you can't judge. You can only evaluate. Here's what I see, and here's how you should do it better. But we are really bad at times of judging, and I don't know that we understand why that passage was in the Bible, how important it is, because it really is adversarial in nature.
Well, we may share different theological points on some things, but I was just wondering, because you're sitting at a Dunkin', what do you, when you're not working, and I can tell you're someone that loves your job, you're 2 feet in. Mm-hmm. What do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies?
I love photography. And it's a lot less expensive these days because of digital. When I first started, it was film, and being a tactile kinetic learner, you can only imagine how expensive that is.
I'm going to grab something. Keep going.
Okay.
He can still hear you.
Okay. So photography is really cool. I love golf. I'm not good at it. My goal is now I love going and being with the persons I'm playing with, a twosome or a foursome, and just experiencing the relationships are really kind of cool. And then if I, a good round of golf for me is a +2. And I don't mean that by score. I mean that by number of golf balls. If I can come away with being +2 instead of -6 on the golf balls, it's a good round of golf. The cool thing about that is that in both of those for me, he's pulling lenses out. I love it. The cool thing for me is in both of those hobbies, to be really engaged, if you want to really even have fun with it and stuff, it's an escape. You have to focus on that. When you're hitting a shot in golf, you're focused on a lot of things. So the world goes away. And same thing with photography. You're lining up the light and the right angle and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
So this is a KS Super 2. It's really old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So,
I started with a Canon EF1.
Yeah.
Which was before the AE one. So, yeah. If you're a photography buff and you love photography, there's a little, I mean, not little, it's probably 2,000 rectangular feet in Wichita. This guy's got a photography shop, and you walk in there, and it's like you were, Mr. DeMille, can I get your camera from you? I mean, it is 1900s and 1920s, and I mean, he's got things in that camera shop it should be a museum. It'll blow you away. So golf, photography, and then learning. I just love to learn, and it's not so much book reading as much as audio books, and a lot of I love the Smithsonian Channel on TV, the Discovery Channel, so anything learning I like to do. So those would be the big three, and it's not a hobby, it's a passion. My grandchildren and my son and my immediate family is a big hobby too. But it's from playtime, it's photography and then golf are the big two, and then of course sports. I love sports, so yeah.
I started out photography. I took it as a I had no, it wasn't a minor, but some electives, and I said, let me try that. And I'm going to tell you what, I really loved it. I took to it, and that was back in the day when you had the dark room. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is a really, really neat experience. Now they do all the digital stuff. This isn't the one I started out with. I have a Canon. I can't remember the name of it, but this was actually gifted to me. And my son takes this with him. And there's no film in it. But the funny thing is when you do this, you can hear it. So he takes it with him everywhere, points it at people, and takes pictures of them. He's only 6, so everyone's all freaked out. They're thinking he's taking their picture and going to do something. And I don't have the heart to tell him there's nothing in there because he thinks he's really doing something. So I always gesture to the person and go, there's no film in there.
Yeah. I actually, Seth, I actually have some of the nice pictures I took in my time in Pennsylvania are leaving Newcastle. There's a beautiful like old mill with a water stream and a big red covered bridge. And it's I've taken shots there a couple of times. Some of the best pieces I've got. I love that area. So I forget the name of the park, but
was it McConnell's Mill?
McConnell's Mill. Yes, I think so. It's got the red covered bridge going over the water in the mill. I think that's it. Yeah. So I just was driving back after a great visit, and I saw the road sign and happened to have my camera with me and went down there and took some great pictures. So yeah.
I like what you said about the photography and the golf. You have to stay completely focused.
Mm-hmm.
On what you're doing.
That's good for your brain. It's good for your mind to sharpen it on that laser focus.
Well, it helps at times I call it noise. It makes the noise go away. So it's always good to make the noise go away. Yeah.
So I don't know if Pastor has any more questions for you. But one of the last questions I want to ask is if you would run into your 10-year-old self, that you got in a time traveling machine and went back and you ran into 10-year-old Bob, what would you say to him knowing what you know now?
Well, the first thing I would say is, you're in 5th grade and you're going to a Catholic school. And I know you don't think a lot of the nuns and the priests, but you might want to pay a little bit closer attention because it certainly will impact you later in your life. So the sooner you have a really good, tight relationship with Christ, the better off you'll be. So that would be the number one thing. And then the number two thing is, and it's tougher today. It's insanely tougher today, but I think it still applies. And that's just be a kid, have a good relationship with Christ in all those teachings. Be kind, loving, accepting, but just be a kid. Don't grow up too fast. You'll have time to grow up. Today, especially, we kids today, it's insane, and part of that's the parents' responsibility. But just be a kid, and then as you get older, just be a kid at heart. Always have that lightness about you, that sense of humor, and at the same time the sense of humility. But yeah, those would be the two things. The sooner you have for me at least, looking at my life, the sooner you have a closer relationship with Christ, the better off you'll be. And then just always remember, just be a kid right now. We fight so hard from 10 to 20 to be independent, to forge your own path. And part of that is rebellion. And part of that is, independence. And, don't, just be a kid, accept the fact. You don't have to, there's plenty of time to develop who you are and your own person, and just appreciate where you're at in life. I think that the way I say it is it is hard work. It is really hard work, but it's very valuable to just be content in life. I always say that I have to remember, this is where he wants me. Sometimes it's not where I want to be. And there's some negotiation that goes along with that, right? It's like, no, hey, look, I got this plan, and I really think if you really were a little more open to it, God, you'd see it was really cool. And he says, yeah, hold my beer. That's not what I want for you, right? and just, so yeah. And when I've talked to people in the past about being content, that's the thing they tell me. It's like, well, that seems like hard work. Well, yeah, it is hard work. It's hard work to be self-aware. It's hard work to know that you are where he wants you to be. And that can be frustrating at times. But there's also a big sweet spot to it. So the gratitude part, the appreciation part of that far outweighs those frustrating parts. But it is part of the journey. And it does take hard work to be content. You don't get everything you want today. You don't get it tomorrow. Sometimes you don't get it at all because he has a better plan. He knows where he wants you to be and where he wants to take you. So, and there's a ton of value in being quiet. So that's the other thing I would tell the 10-year-old is learn how to be quiet. Learn how to listen. Listen to your ears, listen to your mind, listen to your heart, listen to your soul, because there's messages there that if you don't, you'll forget it. So be at peace with. Learn how to pray and learn how to be quiet, so that you can hear what messages are being sent your way. And that to me is important. So when I get frustrated, I try to find a place just to be quiet. And just to say, all right, where do you want me? What am I supposed to learn from this? What's the lesson you're trying to teach me here? Because I'm not getting it yet. I really want to get it. So yeah. So those would be those are three things. Have a close relationship sooner with God and with Christ. Remember to be a kid now and be a kid at heart later. Be with humor and humility. And then just learn the value of being content by being quiet and listening with all of your senses, your heart, your mind, your soul, your senses. So, yeah.
Wow. Those are all really good. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I missed this just in the beginning. Are you at Dunkin now, or is that a background?
No, that's a background. I'm up in Omaha, Nebraska now. So we're opening a store on Thursday. So up here to help see how we get ready. And I got some visits tomorrow, some food safety visits to help coach and teach tomorrow. So yeah, that's one of my recent backdrops. We opened this store, the Wichita runs on Dunkin back in March. So yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
When are we going to air this?
Actually, this upcoming Thursday.
You'll be on Thursday.
Oh, cool. Well, good. It's awesome. Yeah. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So it was funny. I was a little anxious, right? You just you're always wondering, A, what you sound like, because you never sound like what you sound like. That's the first thing. And then just to make sure, I appreciate some of the questions or insights in advance. So I felt that I was prepared for it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Well, I'll sign us off, okay, Bob?
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. This is Anthony Clauditis and Seth Walters. We are signing off at the Clauditis house today at Engage Podcast. If you've been blessed, hit that subscribe button. We look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. I appreciate you.
All right.
See ya.